So, after years of waiting, Borderlands 4 is finally out. However, instead of smooth looting, shooting, and chaos, a lot of players are instead dealing with stutters, low frame rates, and crashes that make the game almost unplayable. On Steam, reviews are currently sitting at mixed, and the conversations around launch is, well, messy. In this video, we're going to break down what's going on, why performance is so rough, what people are saying about the game and Unreal Engine 5, and whether Gearbox can turn things around. So let's start with the reaction. The game hit Steam and immediately got slammed with overwhelmingly negative reviews, but to be fair, it has since managed to bounce back to now sit at a solid mixed rating instead. The main issue? Well, to absolutely nobody's surprise, it is, of course, performance. People have been experiencing constant crashes, frame rates that are dipping into the low double digits, and no matter how much people tweak their settings, it just doesn't seem to be able to help. Basically, the game looks like it could be good fun underneath all of this, but at the end of the day, you can't enjoy it if it doesn't run properly. Players are reporting some pretty wild numbers as well. Even people with top-of-the-line PCs, we're talking about RTX 5090s and Ryzen 7 9800 XDs. These guys are seeing frame rates drop into the low 20s apparently. That's just not acceptable from a brand new AAA release, despite the fact that this seems to be an ever too common trend these days. And if you're on a low-end or even a mid-range setup, good luck to you. The stutters and frame drops make firefights feel like a slideshow, not to mention random crashes completely killing the gameplay experience for many. The most common phrase people are saying online, it seems, is that it's barely playable, and when that's the vibe around your launch on day one, it's a problem, a big problem. Now here's where things get even stranger. Testing on both ends of the hardware spectrum shows that performance is inconsistent across the board. On high-end rigs you'd expect the game to fly, but it just doesn't. Even with everything maxed out and DLSS or FSR helping out, frame rates dip below the 40s outdoors with constant stuttering, and yes, of course, crashes too. On minimum spec PCs, it's rough. Indoors, at the lowest settings, it's somewhat playable it seems, but the second you head outdoors into the open world, frame rates just tank and your CPU gets completely hammered. It's not just about needing a beefy graphics card, the game clearly has optimization issues that affect everyone. So why is the game running this badly? A lot of signs are currently pointing to poor CPU scaling. Outdoor areas with big environments, lots of objects and lots of enemies cause huge spikes, leading to stutters and frame drops. Add in shader compilation issues and you've got a perfect recipe for disaster. Now when looking at a lot of the performance reviews that are online at the moment, it does seem that there is indeed a risk of significant CPU bottlenecking in Borderlands 4, particularly on older or lower core count CPUs. And in fact the game's minimum CPU requirements demand an 8-core processor. That's the minimum. That means no matter how good your GPU is, it won't deliver the performance you'd expect unless you have a CPU to match it. And in fact, according to data taken from Steam's hardware survey that they send out to basically all Steam users, and people can choose to fill it in or not, over 50% of users in the most recent survey are currently using a CPU that doesn't meet that minimum requirement of 8 cores to run Borderlands 4. Now, hardware aside, it's not just necessarily about what you've got in your rig, it's also about the game itself not being optimized, something that is sadly becoming increasingly common among AAA game releases these days, particularly, I might add, on games built on Unreal Engine 5. And this is another big talking point in the community at the moment. Yes, Borderlands 4 is built on Unreal Engine 5, and whilst the engine is capable of absolutely stunning visuals, like breathtaking visuals, a lot of games using it have shipped with big performance problems recently. If you haven't seen it already, check out my last video on Oblivion Remastered for just one example. Now, some people are saying that Unreal Engine 5 is just not built for massive open world games and environments, or at least not without massive fine-tuning, but what's more likely is that this is just another case of developers rushing things and pushing the engine's flashy features without properly optimizing before the game gets released. Graphic features like Lumen, which is what they use to create all the dynamic lighting and water reflections and things like that, and Nanite, which is what provides the high density geometry. That's basically what allows for the super ultra detailed textures within the world. Those are all really powerful but extremely demanding, both on GPU and CPU. And if it's not tuned properly, this leads to big dips in performance and frame rate. In fact, the CEO of Epic, who own Unreal Engine 5, Tim Sweeney, even said in a recent interview that developers developers need to focus more on performance when it comes to Unreal Engine 5, and stating that the main cause of performance issues is the order of development. Many studios build for top-tier hardware first and leave optimization for low-spec testing until the end of development. Ideally, optimization should begin early, before full content build-out. And to be fair, he's got a point. We often see games these days that launch in a terrible state, only to be remedied by subsequent patches that increase performance later down the line, particularly for the mid to lower end systems. It's not a problem with Unreal Engine itself, so to speak, but rather the way in which developers choose to build and optimize a game using that engine. Regardless of this though, the CEO of Gearbox who developed Borderlands 4, Randy Pitchford, decided it would be a good idea to add even more fuel to the fire, responding to one fan's tweet by saying that they need to have realistic expectations when it comes to Borderlands 4's performance. Now, whether he meant that as a reminder that no launch is perfect or as a defense of the current state of the game, the community did not take it well. It seems like a lot of players feel like the comment was dismissive and almost blaming them for expecting a AAA game in 2025 to run well on high-end hardware. The backlash was immediate, with memes, tweets, posts, and all sorts calling it completely tone-deaf. It's one thing to ask for patience, but when your game is struggling this badly, people expect accountability and a clear plan to fix things, not a lecture about expectations. Also, this idea that no launch is perfect is just absolutely ridiculous. It didn't used to be this way. Remember that, guys. These days, it feels like developers think that players will just accept broken games that they'll then fix with later patches, but that's just completely absurd. It should not be that way, even though it has been for the last few years, and we shouldn't stand for it, not one bit. Now, to their credit, Gearbox have pushed out a day one patch, and it does seem to have fixed some of the crashes and stability problems, which is a step in the right direction for sure. But performance, it's still rough, with Randy Pitchford once again chiming in to say that it won't do much for older hardware, and that players with below minimum system requirements should expect for the game to be, and I quote here, unplayable. Unsurprisingly, people are still reporting stutters, low frame rates, and even crashes after the updates. So anyone that was hoping for a miraculous day one patch that's going to fix all of the problems, you're going to be bitterly disappointed. Now, of course, subsequent patches can fix a lot, but the question is, how patient are people going to be, and how long are they willing to wait before they just give up on the game entirely? The community's reaction so far has been, let's just say it, brutal. Memes, angry reviews, and frustrated comments are absolutely everywhere online. Fans are now pairing this disappointment along with the comments from Randy Pitchford saying it feels like Gearbox isn't acknowledging the real scope of the problems and kind of just laying the blame on the players themselves. So what now? Well, Gearbox obviously need to put optimization at the top of their priority list. They've got to fix CPU bottlenecks, smooth out the shader compilation, and be clear about what kind of hardware this game actually needs to run smoothly. Otherwise, Borderlands 4 risks joining the ever-growing list of launches that people remember for all of the wrong reasons. And Unreal Engine 5, whilst it's exciting, it's also showing growing pains. If developers can't figure out optimization or how to properly develop a game with optimization in mind, we're going to keep seeing rocky launches like this one. And when leadership makes comments that come across as dismissive, it's only going to make the situation worse. So, to wrap things up, Borderlands 4 is a fun game, allegedly, but it's buried underneath layer upon layer of performance issues. From negative reviews to stuttering and crashing, it's been a pretty rough launch so far, to say the least. Add in Randy Pitchford's comments about expectations, and the community's frustrations are going to get even worse. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you guys tried out Borderlands 4 yet? Did it run smoothly, or are you stuck in a slideshow? What's stability like? Are you guys playing for hours and hours on end, or are you just getting one crash after another? Let me know how you're getting on in the comments below. I'm actually genuinely curious to hear what everyone's experiences have been with the launch so far. And that's it. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button and subscribe for more content. Your support is very much appreciated. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.